In this episode, Ed Barkowitz joins me to discuss Travis Konecny being a healthy scratch and Anthony Deangelo clearing waivers. In Team ISO, Evan Lobsinger joins the show to talk about Dylan Larkin and all things Detroit Red Wings. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Borjaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with three hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, go to jablamsports.com, see all our podcasts, and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on this show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts, and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. Let's go to the Liberty Bell and run those steps in front of the Philadephia Museum of Art and talk to Ed Barkowitz. He's a sports writer for the Philadephia Inquirer. You can find him on Twitter at Ed Barkowitz. Ed, how's it going?
It's going all right. They're not running the steps today at the Art Museum, though. They are sledding them. We had about 8 inches of snow. The kids are all happy about that. And, we just waiting now for the Bruins to come to town.
Bruins are coming, but on Saturday night, the game was approaching, and the team leader in goals, plus minus, is sitting. Travis Konecny, the future of the team, in my opinion, is a healthy scratch. What was up with that at the beginning?
Yeah, at that time, the Flyers were 5-2-1, I believe. And it was a deceptive 5-2-1. They were not playing very well. That's eight games, so 24 periods thrown in overtime, so 25 sessions. They were outplayed 5-on-5 in 22 of them. They were just not playing well. The goaltending was helping them out. The penalty kill was helping them out. They were getting some timely goals, and they were getting good third periods. But mostly they were being outplayed. The Islanders, going back to, the Islanders were the Saturday-Sunday doubleheader for them. The Islanders outplayed the Flyers last year in the postseason. The series went to 7 games, but the Islanders helped play for most of those games. And in that series, Travis Konecny, he had no goals. He was largely a non-factor because of how physical the Islanders could be. Alain Vigneault, as he's wont to do, will sit anyone, based on performance. And my guess is that, it was more of a message thing, but it's no coincidence that it came against the Islanders, who Konecny struggled with last year in the postseason.
Alain Vigneault was quoted saying, "I believe TK is one of our top 3 forwards. Tremendous potential. His 5-on-5 game needs to be better in the areas he's aware of, and there's a 200-foot game you need to play." Why is he really kind of signaling out Konecny? You mentioned it there. He seems like a bit of a scapegoat. Is he not the only one that's not playing maybe both ends of the ice?
Well, he could be better. No, there are others. I mean, the defensemen, frankly, have let them down a little bit. But the Flyers have had trouble getting out of their zone. And the big reason, if you ask me, why that is because they're not getting the support from the forwards. The forwards have one skate up ice, and it's costing the Flyers. They're spending a lot of time in their own zone. The metrics are about 55% or so of plays start with faceoffs in the defensive zone, and that's unacceptable. Especially with Sean Couturier not playing, you're not winning those faceoffs like you did last year. The Flyers were one of the best faceoffs. So is Konecny the scapegoat? That's tough to say because he has diminished ice time for others. He put Jake Voracek on the 4th line last year when Jake struggled early. That's a lot of money for a 4th liner, $7 or $8 million. So it was Travis's time just to feel a little bench time.
So then they had the following game on Sunday with the Islanders. I barely noticed them out there. You have your piece on the Inquirer, and we're going to post it on our game notes for this episode, Season 6, Episode 8. Did you notice any improvements in the game, or is that healthy scratch really dwelling on him?
No, I think he was a little more committed defensively. You watch the whole game. You can't, watching individual players for all the time is a little difficult. But what I saw was he was a little more committed defensively. He had one shot on goal and hit a post, so he was out there. But it wasn't, his performance. The line that dominated that game for the Flyers was the Lawton line with Joel Farabee with a hat trick and JVR had 4 assists. So Konechny's line, he was on with Hayes, and I have it in my notes, but he was on Kevin Hayes' line. They didn't do much offensively, but it was just his first game back, so I wouldn't count too much on that. Let's see. Frankly, I'm curious to see how he performs against Boston, which is also another heavy team.
Another kid I enjoy watching is Shayne Gostibehere. He was out of lineup 6 games fighting COVID, and he kind of looks like his old self. From what everybody's saying, he looks set to have a pretty good season.
Yeah, he's playing on the top defensive pairing alongside Ivan Provorov. And last year was kind of a nomadic year for Gostibehere. He was hurt a lot of the time. And when he was in the lineup, he was in that third pairing. So he was on with Robert Hagg, who's, kind of a lumbering defensive, he's a thumper, but he's not the offensive guy that Gostibehere could use next to him. Same with Justin Braun, he spent a lot of time when he was in. So now he's on with Provorov, and he's playing the right side. He's a lefty defenseman, but he's playing the right side, and he prefers that side. Says that it allows it caters more to some of the moves he likes to make, including the one-timers. Coming from the left to the right, he enjoys making that play. So having him up there, knowing that he's going to get steady minutes as long as he performs, then he'll get his power play time. And yeah, I think that he's in a good spot right now. Up there with Provorov.
You mentioned playing with Provorov, and he's a bit of that steady guy. The way Shayne plays, he's a little bit of that high risk, high reward type player, as you mentioned in your article as well. Is Coach Vigneault fine with playing him like that and giving him the big minutes then?
Yeah, I think he is. And frankly, he doesn't have a choice because he really wants to keep Sanheim and Myers, the second pair, a couple of young defensemen that came up together in the system. He really likes that pairing. They're long, they're 6'4", 6'5", and he likes that pairing. So now you're left with your third pair, which has kind of been a moving target for the Flyers. And so having Gostibehere up on the first pairing is optimal, and frankly, it's his best choice in light of Matt Niskanen retiring.
So in other NHL news, everybody's talking about it, and that's Anthony Deangelo. He was put on waivers and then cleared on Monday. From what I hear, and obviously listening to the 31 Thoughts podcast with Merrick and Friedman, there was an altercation between him and Alexandar Georgiev. And I'm also going to post the video of that last play in overtime where he and Georgiev have a bit of bad miscommunication there behind the net. They bump into each other. And then right after, pretty much, Sidney Crosby scores in overtime to win that game for the Penguins. It was said that afterwards, in the hallway, Deangelo uttered some words to Georgiev, and Georgiev fought back with a punch, and the rest of the team intervened. Shortly after, management has a meeting, and Anthony's put on waivers. It seems that the issues and the line and the stuff have just been building up, going back from junior hockey to maybe things he's mentioned on his Twitter account, and they probably talked to him about that. Is there anything else that you've heard?
No, I mean, just that, they signed him to the extension in October, figuring that he was in a good place mentally. And, he was, as you say, the deciding goal, and he was on the ice. There was a miscommunication, but he was also on the ice for 3 other goals. Mm-hmm. His plus minus, he's at a -6 now. The Rangers have started off really bad, and he's been a loose cannon. He's played for 3 organizations now since being a top pick and a first round pick in 2014. So you take that into consideration, and then you take into consideration that he was waived. Mm-hmm. And everyone passed him. which probably was a financial consideration too, because he does make a lot of money. And now he's going on the practice squad. And, the Rangers are on record as saying he'll never play for us again.
So you mentioned that he's had, like, even in the same game itself, wasn't that great. When we look at superstars such as a Giroux or a Crosby or McDavid, do they have then a much longer leash when it comes to on and off ice issues? And what will the organizations do to support those type of players?
Yeah, I think that to me the off ice incidents and problems are what sunk Deangelo here, and you have those guys that you mentioned. They don't have those problems. They certainly can have bad games. They can have turnovers at the blue line. They can have the physical stuff, but when you get into that that extraneous area of problems, I think it was. I don't know if it was Davidson or the Rangers GM who mentioned that, we can't hear about this other stuff. You want to post, sort of controversial stuff or deny that COVID exists, what you've done, that's one thing. But then, there's other things that, just reflect poorly on a team. And the Rangers have washed their hands of them.
With a player like himself, he's still got tons of skill and he's young. What can he do to get him back on an NHL roster?
For this season, I don't know. Again, because he costs a lot of money. You can't buy out players in mid-season. The cap is tight for everyone because, it was a flat cap. So this season, I would be surprised if there was some movement there. But, with the playoff situation being such that, it's limited and teams feel like they could be a Tony Deangelo player away, I don't know. You're asking a lot because you're potentially upsetting the room, with an incident. I don't see any resolution for this season. Does he get bought out in the summer and then allowed to go elsewhere? Maybe.
The NHL is getting more COVID problems. On Monday, they announced the cancellation and rescheduling of 4 Golden Knights games. They've additionally postponed the New Jersey games for the Devils up till, I think, February the 6th.
Saturday.
Yeah. And, of course, they've announced 10 members on their team to the COVID protocol-related absence list. Was it a great idea to start this season? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think it was They owed it to, they wanted to try to do this. The players didn't want to sit out. There's money involved here. Let's not kid ourselves. I think that, when you get into this situation, you do the best you can. You're constantly testing. You hope incidents like, what the Capitals had the other day or, last week, the players have some culpability here too. There is that fine line. Do you kind of shut everything down or do you do the best you can? To try to contain it. Now, I know in covering games, it's a lot, you're nowhere near the players, and that's fine by me because they're in different hotels and, they're traveling around. I don't have any great interest in being around them either. But, there is different levels of literally physical levels within the Wells Fargo Center that, are inaccessible to, everybody from the Zamboni driver to, to the media to, to all sorts of people. So I don't mind the idea that they tried, that they're having a season.
It was funny that you mentioned the different levels, and I was just remembering the game last night, and I'm going to bring it up right now. LeBron James, they're in Atlanta, and the female fan, they're like right in front. I was like looking at this, I'm like, I've been focused on hockey, and there are actual fans, and the players are right next to each other, and they're even yelling, getting into yelling matches. It was quite a predicament in itself, but it's just that, wow, this is still going on in some places where the fans there's still a fair bit of fans at games and they're right in their faces.
Yeah, in certain markets, they are allowing that. And I was surprised to see that too. In Philadelphia, there's no fans allowed. And in most NHL arenas, there's no fans allowed. But like you, I was a little taken aback by that. And then just the way it deteriorated.
Oh, it was ridiculous. And then LeBron and then social media, that was another event in itself. But going back to the NHL, with this trend and COVID and the numbers, if it keeps on continuing, does it look like they might have to extend the season, I'm guessing?
I'm sure they have options. I know that they want to finish at a certain time, before the Olympics get going, frankly. And they don't want to upset, possibly the 21-22 season. So I know that I'm sure that they have plans for, either extending the season, shrinking the season. I mean, I think anything would be on the table.
Anything is on the table. And again, you can find him on Twitter at Ed Barkowitz. Ed, thank you for coming on the show.
Peter, my pleasure, bud.
Now we go to Hockey Town. This week's Team ISO. We are Team ISOing the Detroit Red Wings. Back on the show is Evan Lobsinger. He's the co-host of the Winged Wheel Podcast. You can go to the website, wingedwheelpodcast.com, and you can find him on Twitter at HockeyTownEvan. Welcome back, Evan.
Thanks so much for having me back.
As pretty much everybody's predicting Detroit to finish at the bottom of the division, and that's where they stand right now, second last in the league. One bright spot on this team, maybe supposedly, was supposed to be Filip Zadina, but he's been out 5 straight games, being put on the COVID protocol list. What's the update there? When do we expect him back?
So Zadina's actually been quite good this year. I would argue he's probably one of the best forwards on this team. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I speak in relativity in regards to the Red Wings, not what general hockey fans would look at their team. But Zadina's supposed to be back Friday, so he's going to miss the game tomorrow against Tampa. And it's much needed. This lineup is not very dynamic and honestly pretty boring to watch without him in it.
It's a struggle for them a little bit. And I know we mentioned some of the players on the team in our Season 6, Episode 4 seasonal preview episode, the Discovery NHL Central Division. And you mentioned that goaltending was probably going to be one of their best assets. Well, so far it really hasn't been. Thomas Greisch has yet to gain a win in a Wings uniform, and Bernier really hasn't held his own. Could we see a change between the pipes at all, if there is any to make?
I think the Red Wings will run with these two guys the whole year unless someone comes and wants to trade for them. There's nobody really in the AHL worth calling up and pulling through the taxi squad. Mm-hmm. So I think the conversations are, excuse me, that these two guys, it's their job, and they got to figure out how to play a little bit better. Mind you, I do have sympathy for goaltenders on the Detroit Red Wings the past few years. Jimmy Howard, I think, had 1 win last year. And Bernier should have maybe got some Vezina votes last year. But with that being said, eventually he had to come back down to earth. And it's tough. It's tough being a goalie on a last place team. You're going to get shelled every night. The team's going to give up high quality scoring chances left, right, and center. If I had to have any analysis of the team, I still wouldn't say goaltending's one of the bad spots. It's just they have so much more volume coming at them than any other goalie in the league. So I do feel for them. But I think it's these two guys net for the rest of the season.
That it would leave me to imply that there's a lot of holes on that defense and that blue line there. What can they do to improve that? Who's coming up that could maybe help them on that blue line?
Well, there isn't hope for this season. Mm-hmm. Picking up Mark Stahl has, it was good to get a pick out of him for him. But he has regressed significantly, as most people expected. They picked up Christian Juice off of waivers for nothing, and he's actually been all right. He's driven some offense. Mind you, he's only got 1 assist in 6 games, but this is the Red Wings. That's going to be expected. So I've actually kind of liked his game a little bit. The Red Wings did a lot of addition by subtraction, relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. getting rid of Daly, getting rid of Eriksson really helped. Mind you, we took Mark Stahl on, but neither here nor there. Bringing in John Merrill, Troy Stetcher has kind of solidified, at least we have a floor now. We're not free falling anymore on the defensive side of the puck. And I think Troy Stetcher's looked actually pretty good, all relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. So the problem with the Red Wings D-core is they can play D for the most part, but they can't drive offense. And the only person who can is Filip Hronek, and he hasn't looked that great so far. Mind you, he's got 6 points in 10 games, but I would like to see him have a few more goals, and look a little bit more dynamic like he did last year and hasn't shown this year. In terms of addition, everyone was sort of hoping that once the SHL season was done, Moritz Seider would come over. Mm-hmm. But he was hurt within the past couple days, and he's week to week right now. Nothing ultra serious, but they're taking some extra precautions. So I would think that rules him out from coming over and playing in Detroit this season. So once again, I think it's going to be these guys have to hold the fort as best they can. And Danny DeKeyser's been all right too. He's got a good brain for the game, but he with the amount of injuries he had, the body just doesn't work the way his brain wants it to anymore. So it is what it is. Like, mm-hmm. That's what this team is this year. It'll be tough to make trades, tough to make moves for everybody. But the Red Wings aren't in a position to add unless it's going to be a youth or a prospect coming up.
They are getting the offense, and that is a bright spot from Dylan Larkin. He's been playing well so far, 4 goals, 9 points. What have you liked about Larkin's game so far this season?
Honestly, everything. We were saying in our season preview episode that, he could be a point per game player this year. The offense basically drives through him because there really isn't too much of a supporting cast. I've liked everything about his game. His Corsi numbers are good. He's winning tons of faceoffs. He's driving offense. He's scoring more, which is what we really wanted to see out of him. He's making a lot of nice power moves too. Like he's had a few goals where he comes from the outside and pushes his way through to the middle of the ice and has resulted in goals. So in terms of Dylan Larkin, like so far, that's 10 games in, I'd say it's an A+ for him. He's done everything that people have looked from him and more. He's been excellent.
With the different problems in the roster that they're having, you could take it up to the management. Is it possible they could make some moves over there? Is it time to maybe cut loose on Blashill?
That is the most asked question on Red Wings Twitter, I think, and probably the most commented thing on Red Wings Twitter. It's tough, Blashill came in and the cards were stacked against him, and everybody knew that. No one really expected anything. And he mostly hasn't had any team with any expectations yet. Mm-hmm. People thought maybe this was the first year now that they've got some stopgap NHLers coming in like Bobby Ryan and Vlad Nemesnikov. But it's been pitiful. Mm-hmm. I will say that there have been some good line combinations that he's gone with. But when things don't work, he goes right to the line blender, and you can just see the lack of chemistry out there. Nobody knows really what's going on. The power play is atrocious, but that falls on Dan Bylsma. If I had free reign, the leash would be short with Jeff Blashill right now. I think they should be doing a little bit better than this. But they play low. He has that team playing low event hockey, and it's tough to watch, but that's what he wants to do. He wants to grind out a 2-1 game or a 3-2 game. I would be more willing to move on from Dan Bylsma and get someone else running the power play because it's god awful. There's no movement on it. There's no creativity. It's terrible. And I think that would, just a small increase on the power play would probably translate to a few more wins, which would probably save Jeff Blashill's job for this year.
With the roster that they've built with management, does that work with Blashill's style that he wants to play with these players?
Jeff Blashill loves, like I said, the low event hockey, the chip and chase. He does not like the run and gun style that other teams play. And Nemesnikov has a good tool set. Bobby Ryan, everybody knows him. He's got great hands. He's got a great shot, and has worked out fairly well so far in Detroit. But those aren't the guys who play chip and chase hockey. Like they need the puck on their stick and they need to create through possession. Philip Zadina is another guy. He creates offense through possession. The guys who play chip and chase are the Franz Nielsen's, the Darren Helms, the Luke Glendennings. And they don't drive offense as they shouldn't. It's just not a good system right now for the type of players that this team has. And frankly, it's boring to watch.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what his roster makeup will work for his style. So I don't know. I don't see him lasting too long, especially with the type of players and talent and the future prospects coming along. If you look at a good one, I know we mentioned Lucas Raymond in our preview episode, and again, I mentioned it before, Season 6, Episode 4, so you can go back and check that out, you Wings fans. But the 30th overall in 2018, Joe Veleno, how's he coming along?
He's been pretty good. He was pretty slow at the start in the SHL, but he has since turned it around. He's been on a bit of a heater lately. He's fourth on the team in scoring. He's got 9 goals, 6 assists. So he's got a half point per game, which is, pretty good for going over to play in the SHL. Like that's maybe the third or second best league in the world. So I would suspect at some point he jumps over to the Grand Rapids Griffins. We might see him in Detroit. In the COVID world, anything is really possible and anything's up in the air right now. And in my opinion, it's too soon for him to be in Detroit. But if he gets a look, I'll be very interested to see how he shakes out in Detroit this season. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks to both our guests this week. Ed's insight into Coach Vigneault shows us that he's a hard-nosed coach who is already preparing for his team in the playoffs. Evan, on the other side, lets us know that Blashill or even Bylsma might not be the right fit for this Red Wings roster. Thanks again, gentlemen. Remember, if you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode, or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at Russia98 or the entire team at Jablam Sports. If you want, you can also contact us on our website. You can use the hashtag at Jablam Sports, Jablam Sports, that's JABLAM, and our website is jablamsports.com/contact for our contact page there. Please check out our website, go to jablamsports.com to see all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode, including this one. And you'll get our guests' info and links to things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Also, follow us on our Facebook group, Jablam Sports. Check us out, folks. Thank you, everyone. Shout out. This week's shout out is to Ravi Mishra. She's been a great friend of mine during these tough times that we're all going through. And we're both working our butts off to succeed in our careers while this pandemic is going on. I really appreciate our talks and both of our drives that will take us to the next level. Thank you, Ravi. You give me the energy to keep going, and I hope to see you in church when all this is over. And to every one of our listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.